Welcome to Capital to the Coast BNI. My name is Mike Manning. Each week, we bring you a local small business success story from one of our 38 chapters, stretching from the Triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, all the way to the coast of Wilmington and all points in between. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here is the Triangle to Wilmington. And each week, our local chapters meet, and our goal is to help each other grow their business. And our local small business success story this week is Andrew Buchbinder. He is with Mortgage Investors Group. Andrew and a couple of friends of his are starting a core group in Wilmington, and that means you have to have 20 members to launch to be an actual BNI chapter. So everybody up to 19 is a core group. Andrew and his cohorts there have 5 with a couple more on the way. So we're glad to have Andrew on the show today. Andrew, how are you?
I'm great, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
You bet. All right, so folks, we're going to get into a couple things. Andrew is 5 months into a new job, a few months more into a new city. He comes from minor league baseball where he spent 13 years, so a natural transition. We're going to learn about how easy that was. But Andrew, my first question to you is, do you have your NMLS number memorized?
Oh, I can get you. Yes, I do. I think I do.
Because
2699573. I think.
and that has to be on all your printed material whenever you sign something?
All printed material. What's really where it's really grown to is all like digital
Yeah.
marketing. So your social media page, you've got to have that license number listed everywhere to be compliant. So when I was setting all of that up, I could recite it like that. Now, one of those
Yeah.
middle nines and
Yeah.
fives, I might have transposed, but I think it's 2699573.
So Buckbinder's now your middle name is what I'm gathering, right? Your last name is your
Exactly.
NMLS number, right?
Exactly. That takes over everything. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I've learned this from my realtor and mortgage lender friends in BNI that we as home buyers, we kind of go about this process the wrong way. What's the first call we should make?
Yeah. Well, that was teed up well, Mike, because you're absolutely right. Everybody, when you start to think about a home search, and you've probably been getting emails from Zillow, and you're scrolling online and you want to go see a house in person because it's exciting and it's fun and it should be. But if you pause for just a little bit and get yourself pre-approved first, and that requires talking to a mortgage professional, submitting an application for the loan amount that you're interested in and purchase price that you're interested in. And that way, a thorough pre approval will really dive into
Yeah.
your financial picture, will work with you. If you're really working with the right lender, it's a conversation as well to understand your goals and your objectives and your comfort levels and things you're not comfortable with. And we can really get you not only pre approved for a loan, but we can get a kind of a comprehensive strategy that's based on exact figures and exact budget numbers in place for you on the front end of your search. Because what so often happens is people either think they can qualify for more than they can, or you can qualify for more than you can actually afford. And so sometimes there is that disconnect between what you can qualify for and what you want to pay. And the only way to really identify all of that is to go through that thorough pre-approval, talk to an experienced mortgage professional, and really have a conversation and put together a strategy on the front end.
Yeah, and nothing's worse than meeting with a realtor. Oh, yeah, we want to look at this $500,000 house. And then a month later, you come to find out you only qualify for $385,000. It's really a waste of everybody's time.
It
But
is.
yeah,
And the other thing it does is it skews how you view the home that would be the better fit for you. It's like shopping for anything. If your budget is for, I'm a Subaru driver, if your budget's for a Subaru, don't go to the Lexus dealership.
yeah,
Because that's not going to be realistic, and now you're going to look at a nice Subaru and go, "Wow, yeah, but it's not as nice as that Lexus." So what's right for you is right for you. And that's the biggest thing that we try to sort of preach on the front end of it and help folks through the process as well. I mean, personally, I'm in the middle of a home search as well because, as you mentioned, we're new, we're returners to North Carolina and new here in Wilmington, and it's so easy to look online and be like, oh well, for 30,000 more or 40,000 more, you can get this house, and look at how nice that house is. But you always need to come back to what you're going to be able to qualify for, and really critically, I keep harping on it, but really critically, what you want to be able to afford, so that you're setting yourself up and you're allowing us to help you set yourself up for success and a sustainable path forward in a home that works really well for your life.
Yeah, and it's kinda like a couple of conversations need to be had. One is with someone like you who's doing the loan, and second of all, with your financial advisor, because you're right. You may love that $425,000 house, but that leaves you no wiggle room in your monthly budget should anything happen. And once you become a homeowner, the roof and the HVAC AC unit are all yours. So if they go south, guess who's paying for it?
Yeah, they're all yours, and I think it's a great point that you bring up, because what one thing that we really take a lot of pride in doing is looking at your holistic situation. So, we don't just look at the mortgage necessarily, but if your concern is monthly cash flow, like, okay, instead of just sort of that initial blanket answer of put more down to need a lower loan amount and reduce your monthly payments, which sometimes that is the best fit. Also, though, if you have some investments or you have some cash reserves that you can stick in a money market account, or you can stick in super safe investments that are going to grow, a safe 3, 4, 5%, maybe it makes more sense to invest those in a safe account, let that appreciate and let that grow. And then you set up, recurring monthly withdrawals as long as you need them to get to be in a comfortable place to make your mortgage payment comfortably. We have to qualify you without all of those extra things in play. We have to qualify you for the full payment without that additional income source. But it can be a great strategy to bake in that little extra margin to allow for some comfort on a month to month basis. Because let's face it, I mean, between home prices, interest rates, the deck is so high to be able to do all this in an affordable way. But there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of tricks out there that we can tap into, and that is only really possible, though, beyond that pre-approval. It's really only possible with a consultation and a conversation with a human being, not just getting pre-qualified online and being like, awesome, I got it, because that's such a small picture of your financial profile, and we're talking about the biggest purchase that you're probably going to make. So to take in all factors of your financial picture is really critical.
And talk real quick about the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved.
Yes, absolutely. Those are used interchangeably
Yes.
a lot. Pre-qualified would be, you go online and you put in a little bit of information, probably your income, maybe some account balances, but no documents are collected. There's no income verification, probably a credit pull along the way, but very sort of base level information to get a quick preliminary pre-qualification. A pre-approval, which is what we do at Mortgage Investors Group, a thorough pre-approval. We take a full loan application. We do only do a soft credit pull on the front end, so it won't negatively impact your credit. We do the hard pull once there's a purchase agreement in place, and we really kind of ramp up to get the file ready to go. But with a soft credit pull, we can find out the information that we need about your credit score and history. Then we do collect income documentation. So we do an income verification manually, based off your 30-day pay stub period. If you have a pay stub from the last full year, that's great as well. And we really verify your information on the front end to make sure that once you find that home that you love, and once you enter into a purchase agreement and you pay due diligence and earnest money and some of the upfront cost of entering into a purchase agreement in North Carolina, that we can actually end up making good on the pre-approval and closing that loan. And we can do so in a timely manner. So, for example, a little bit of that front end work that we do, verifying your income on the front end, collecting some bank statements, those kind of things allows us to really hit the ground running once you find a home you love and have a purchase agreement in place, because at that point you've set a closing date and we're on the clock to get you to closing. And so we typically average getting a clear to close 13, 14 days before your closing date. So, and that's really only possible by doing some of that upfront work, which also allows us to identify some areas where we might need some further documentation for underwriting. We might need to get ahead of some questions that we know that are going to be asked. And we can do that on the front end instead of submitting it to underwriting, getting a conditional approval, having to go back and forth and just kind of eat up some time when we're getting close to that closing date. So, definitely very important distinction between sort of a surface level pre-qualification and a thorough pre-approval.
And pre-approval, that number is good for how many days or weeks?
Typically, a pre-approval through Mortgage Investors Group, we typically issue for 3 to 4 months. At which point, if that pre-approval letter expires, then we get back on the phone with you. We go through some of your details, make sure nothing materially has changed, and we can always renew that pre-approval as well.
And sometimes it's best to go to the buy if you're especially a first time home buyer, buy the $350,000 house, which you can afford, then save up. You'll get equity in the house, all that good stuff. Then go buy the $500,000 one. Yeah, maybe a little bit more, but you'll feel better sleeping at night knowing, okay, we've got cushions and plans and things like that. So I know, but that's why you call professionals like Andrew to walk through that. And sometimes people need to tell us, you don't need to do it this way, which is
You know,
hard.
the best advice I got when I went through it from a home buyer standpoint 10 years ago was when we bought our home in Missouri. The best advice I got just from a friend, as we were looking at all these different houses and it's exciting and it's fun and you get wrapped into it and you go, well, I think maybe we can do that. And you're thinking, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. At that point, we were married, but didn't have kids, didn't have a dog yet. We knew we wanted to have the dog first, but you sort of have that plan mapped out. And my friend just sort of slowed us down, and he was like, just buy what you need right now.
Mm.
You know, buy what you need right now, fill it up. Your life will fill it up. And then when you need to, you will have built up equity in this home. It will appreciate. Every mortgage payment you make is a deposit into a savings account, and then you get that back when you sell your home. You can then buy what you need at that point, and you can kind of keep growing into it, which is a great piece of advice. Because it is so easy to kind of get wrapped into I don't know, maybe we could get another
Mm.
bedroom.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do you need it right now?
Mm.
Are you going to need it in a year? You want to think a couple years down the road, but you don't need to think 20 years down the road. Very few people end up seeing the final payment of their 30-year mortgage because you will
Yes.
have refinanced or you will have sold that home. You will have done, whatever life throws at you where you're probably not staying in that home for 30 years anymore, at least.
Mm.
People move around. I think it's an average of like 7 years or so. You're moving from house to house.
Yep.
Sometimes it's a plan, and then sometimes you pick up and move across the country, like we just
Yeah,
did,
which
and
leads
that
yep,
throws everything,
and
into a different track as well.
yep, so that leads me into my next question. So you spent 18 years in minor league baseball in the St. Louis Cardinals organization, doing marketing, ticket sales, play-by-play, voice of the Springfield Cardinals, which we will get to because we got to talk a little bit of baseball today. We won't bore people, but Andrew and I got to talk a little bit of baseball. How does one go from 18 years in minor league baseball in the middle of the country to being a mortgage lender in Wilmington, North Carolina?
One marries someone who's vastly more employable. That's really the answer. My wife, Megan, is the marketing VP for the Wilmington and Beaches Convention and Visitors Bureau. She got into the destination marketing, the tourism industry when we were in Springfield, Missouri. It's right in the Ozarks, beautiful part of the country, and a huge kind of regional tourism hub for the Midwest. And she fell in love with that industry. And so we were kind of rocking along there in Springfield. We've got 2 kids, but my wife is from Charlotte originally, or moved down when she was about 12 and grew up the rest of the way in Charlotte. Her whole family is still in that area. My mom is from Greensboro. We met when I was in Hickory, North Carolina. So North Carolina has always been a special place. The coast has always been a special place to us. And we kind of knew if there were ever a way for us to get back and move our family closer to our parents and our extended family and just this piece of the country that we love, that we would really look into it. North Carolina has so many baseball teams. I kind of figured when I made that deal that it would be for my career, and I would stay in baseball. But it ended up working out where Megan got this amazing opportunity to come over here and help promote this phenomenal area, the Cape Fear region, Wilmington, and the Three Beaches. And we jumped at it, and it's been amazing. It's been a great move. It did throw the one thing we couldn't answer was what I was going to do. Having my entire adult life been spent working in minor league baseball, um, but it's been a great switch. What I really fell in love with, in half a lifetime or whatever, in that industry, is that it's such a community based entity, minor league baseball, where you can only be as strong as a minor league baseball team as the ties to your community and within your community, because you don't have, you could be the Springfield Cardinals, but you're not the St. Louis Cardinals, and you're not the New England Patriots. You don't have this rabid fan base that's based on your on-field success, because that's not the way that the model works. You don't know which players you're going to have. You don't know how long you're going to have them. So your local fans can get really enthusiastically fanatic about the organization and about the impact that you make and the product and the fan entertainment and the resource that you provide for the community. But you have to approach it that way. And so what I fell in love in developing and helping develop those ties within the community, I fell in love with working with people and getting to know people and developing just authentic relationships within the community. And you don't really realize it while it's happening, but then a couple of years down the road, you turn around and you go, man, if you need something, you have somebody for that, or someone who has somebody for that. And you've developed through kind of this organic process, you've developed just this really in depth and supportive community around you, a support system around you. And so that was something that both Megan and I were able to kind of grow and develop in Springfield, even though we didn't even know we were doing it at the time. And it made leaving Springfield that much harder because we had this community that we developed and dived into. And so that's what I knew I wanted to replicate, understanding that, it's important for business, but it's just important for life, I think, to have those kind of relationships. And so I wanted to find a field where I could keep working with people on an in-depth basis. And I just love meeting with people and being out and going to networking events and learning about people and learning how we can help people. And so that's sort of, I knew that that was vaguely something I wanted to do, and my old boss's wife is a loan officer in Springfield, and so they threw that out there as a possibility, and that kind of got stuck in my head, and I thought about it for a couple weeks, and then I reached out to a family friend of mine in Greensboro, Don Owens, who I've known for a long time, and I just called him up to pick his brain about the industry, about the mortgage industry. He's been in it for 25, 30 years and has loved it. And I just wanted to kind of pick his brain about it, the timing of getting into this industry. I'm 40, is it crazy to reinvent yourself at 40? And he was like, "No, not at all." And just assured me that it was going to be a great move. And one thing ended up leading to the next. A couple months later, I was fortunate enough to be able to join his team with Mortgage Investors Group, and it's been amazing ever since.
So, a couple things on that. One is my oldest son turned 39 today, so you are still very young because he's my son, so he'll always be young, right? Um, the first week of business being a mortgage. Oh, first of all, let me back up. So, how many tests did you have to take to become licensed?
So you have to take one national test. that's through the NMLS, and it is 115 questions. You have to get, I'm trying to remember, you have to get a 75% or better, and it's only got about a 50% pass rate
Yep.
on the first try. And this was the first test that I have taken in 18 years. So all of that
Yep.
school anxiety came flooding right back. And I set up, my little war room in the home office and dove into that for a couple weeks studying and getting ready for it. And thankfully passed it on the first try because I can't imagine
Nice.
having to take another test.
Yep.
So that then gets you a general license that's inactive. You then have to take state specific elective courses. So for North Carolina, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 4 additional hours. And for South Carolina, it was 3 additional hours. And then you do take a little quiz at the end of those courses. But the real test is the national one through the NMLS to be licensed and then able to take those state elective courses and then get a state specific license that's actually issued through a state institution.
And do you want to explain what the letters NMLS stand for?
Oh gosh, it's the National Mortgage Licensing System, I believe. Oh, they're gonna kick me out.
Okay. Well, we
But
might.
they're
Yeah.
basically it's the registry that and honestly a lot of the regulations in this industry came from the financial crisis in
Yep.
2007 and 2008 that was based so much on some predatory lending practices and basically issuing home loans that were irresponsible.
Yep.
And so the NMLS was formed after that. You used to not have to take a national test to be able to do mortgages, but now you do, which is a good thing. And it is sort of the national registry where we all get a license ID number through the NMLS, and consumers can access any of our records to see if there have been any complaints made, if there are any concerns that you should have before working with a specific loan officer. It tracks all of that, and it's just a great resource for both the consumer, but also for the loan officer and for companies employing loan officers. So it's a great regulatory service. And then the next layer to that, in order to be actually actively licensed, you go through the state institution. So for North Carolina and South Carolina, you have to apply specifically to those state institutions that issue
Okay.
licenses in those states, and then you have to find what's called a sponsor, that's basically an employer, to activate your license.
Okay. So your first week of being a mortgage lender, what activities were you creating to let people know that you were open for business?
Yeah. So the first week was, I think like the first week is with any new venture in any industry, a lot of time with HR and IT and learning the systems and the technology and all of that. But one of the first pieces of advice that my branch manager, my family friend, gave to me was to network relentlessly. And he said, just go out and make friends and start talking about it and start having
Mm,
conversations and start meeting everyone. There is an element of reaching out to realtors, whether it's cold calling or sponsoring realtor events, being involved with associations of realtors. Like, you do definitely need strong relationships with realtors. They're our primary referral source, because as we started, everybody likes to start with the fun topic, and the realtors, you get to shop with the realtor, you have to buy and pay with the lender. So everybody starts with the realtor because it's a little bit more fun. And then they get you connected with a loan officer that can really get you pre-approved thoroughly. So reaching out to realtors is one of the first things that you do. But also, I think I've taken the approach of thinking a little bit beyond just that one faction of the community, and just meeting as many people in as many different ways as I can. So, it's a lot of networking events. It's a lot of follow up from those networking events. It's one thing. I was about to say it's easy. It's not easy, but it's one thing to go to networking events and meet people, but that only goes so far if you don't follow up. And so mapping out, some follow-up strategy and being diligent with that, and just being, I think, authentically curious about people is a critical first step. If you're going to these events and you're saying, "Hey, do you need a home loan? Hey, do you know anybody who needs a home loan?" and you're kind of going right for the sale, it doesn't work, and
It,
that's also
yeah,
not. I don't think that's a fun way to go about life. So
yeah.
I think just developing a little bit more authentic relationships with folks, and then it's amazing how the opportunities will come from those conversations.
So, what are the 2 to 3 things you're now doing each week to grow a book of business?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really, it's repeating what I was doing in the first week, honestly. And it's, I'm involved with a couple different networking organizations. Obviously, we are developing our BNI group, which already, even just with our little core group of 5 people, we've already had some referrals pass back and forth, which is cool to see that in our infancy as a group, to see that already kind of working, and to see that proof in the pudding already is awesome. So we're working on continuing to grow our BNI group, because when done correctly, as everybody knows, that can be a huge sort of repeating source of referrals and of business. So that's a huge priority. And then going to networking events, at different times of day too. So you sort of, the more you go to those, you kind of travel in the same packs where a similar group of folks in the community are going to these networking events, but not everybody can go to every different time slot. So going to some morning events, going to some lunchtime events, some evening events, I think it's important to try to diversify that, because you're going to start seeing different people at those different events, and then being diligent in follow up, and just diligent but casual in follow up, where you're just catching someone with a cup of coffee. And that way you get to build on a conversation that you started, when you were in a room full of 150 people. And now it's a little easier to really connect in a one-to-one setting.
Did you set goals for your first 6 months, and are you close to achieving some of them?
I set goals. You know me well enough to know that I definitely have goals, and I will say I'm getting close to achieving them. I think it's something that I was warned how long it can take to really develop, in this business, especially being new to the industry and being new to the area, which maybe is the tougher hurdle, is the new to the area, the new to the industry, because you come in with zero relationships. So they set a realistic expectation level for me. I, of course, being my personality, said I can beat that. I'll be faster than that. And it's tough. It's tough because I also believe in doing things the right way. By which I mean doing it authentically, and not just, driving people nuts to the point where they give in or they block your number. I just don't want to live my life that way. So it takes a little longer to do things authentically, and to really develop it relationally. But I believe that it's a more fulfilling way to build a business, and I also believe it's more sustainable long term.
And I believe that, you to this day in your industry, you guys are 100% commission?
So the way the mortgage industry works, it's interesting because we are full-time W-2 employees. So we do receive a draw, which is essentially a salary, very minimal, and then that actually gets paid back out of your commission. So it works out where your take home at the end of the day is commission,
Okay.
almost all commission
Yep.
based. But that way we do have insurance, and we have some benefits that can be covered by that bi-monthly draw.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question about how to start a business where you are 100% commission is the best way to do that is to have a spouse, partner, somebody that is bringing in regular income. So you can do that because if you were doing this without Megan, you would answer things different and you would do things different to get there quicker and not get there the right way.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. And look, I mean, everybody has a different situation, and
Mhm.
has to build it the way that they have to build it. But you are absolutely right. And that initial conversation going back to February in Missouri, when we went out to dinner with my former boss, the GM of the Springfield Cardinals, and his wife, who's the loan officer. And the reason it's worked so well for them is that half of that couple has a steady,
Mm.
predictable income, and the other half is variable. I know plenty of people, especially as I've gotten to know so many people in the real estate industry. As you know, there's so many successful couples who are both realtors or who are both loan officers, or there's a realtor and a loan, where you can couple variable incomes, but it's tougher. It takes a lot more planning. I think there's probably even more pressure than there already is just having one variable income. And you just have to be able to be disciplined and save and plan, months in advance, because you have to be able
Mm.
to make it through the month, where even if you have a pipeline in place, sometimes someone doesn't find a home they love, and that's great. It's good for them to be able to be patient, and they should be patient. But you need to be able to also pay the bills while some of your folks who are pre-approved are patient. And so that just takes planning in advance, and being able to, I think, build a strong enough core and strong enough pipeline to be able to weather some of those highs and lows.
So, talking about your wife, Megan, always enjoy asking my married guest 2 questions. One is, how did you two meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
um, I think so. I think we would tell it pretty similarly. We met through, you'll love this actually, we met through sales. I was in Hickory, North Carolina with the Hickory Crawdads, and was the broadcaster there, but also doing corporate sales, so selling advertising packages. And Megan she went to App State, and then worked. She was the marketing director for their cultural arts department at Appalachian State, where they do a huge. Anybody in North Carolina or the Carolinas in general, would heavily suggest checking it out. It's called the Appalachian Summer Festival, and they do a like a 8 week arts festival at App State and Boone, and they bring in huge acts. I mean, I think Dirk Bentley came when Megan was there. So just some great acts, Patty LaPone, and it's a wide range of artists that they bring in. And so she was the marketing director for that series, and they had been a sponsor with the Crawdads previously. And so, I was new, and I got the stack of folders of past sponsors that hadn't renewed for whatever reason. And so I was working my way through that stack and called Appalachian State up. And Megan she actually was about to start. So the first one of her family members that I talked to was her little sister, who was working in the box office, and picked up the phone. And, I went into my spiel about Andrew from Hickory Crawdads, just want to, reach out, blah, 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 see who the best person is to talk to. And she goes, "Oh, that'll be my sister Megan, but she doesn't start until after the new year." This was like right before Christmas. And so I talked to Kelly first, and then called back after the new year, and talked to Megan. I think it was her first week. So she was just so excited to get a phone call, like a professional phone call. She didn't know that you don't have to take meetings from people cold calling you.
Yeah.
So she was like, "Yeah, come on over. I'd be happy to meet." And one thing kind of led to the next. She ended up signing on for the sponsorship first. But then we just kind of kept talking, and gradually talked less and less about the details of the sponsorship, and set up, because at that time I was traveling with the team, and so your social life is
Mm.
limited during baseball season when you've got a game. We play 140 games in 152 days. So we set up a miniature golf date, like 3 weeks in advance to match up with an off night, and went up to Boone, and I got my butt kicked in putt putt golf, and the rest was history.
So that was the first official date, putt putt golf.
That was the first official date. Yeah, that
Nice.
might be, if there's one topic about the whole story that we have different accounts on. I think I had bad luck, because in Boone, you're in the mountains. And so that putt-putt course is like,
No,
a
dude.
hole is like straight up, and
No.
I kind of got gypped on one hole, and that threw off the whole. Yeah. I think I would have, had it not been for whatever hole that was, I think I would have would have taken it. But
I I'd go down swinging to their story. I don't think anybody will believe you, but I admire you for going down swinging. So, uh,
right, right.
tell me that Megan did not give up her maiden name of Smith for Buchbinder.
Stage. So her maiden name is Stage.
Stage.
She did. She shifted that to be her middle name now. So
Okay.
used to be Megan Elizabeth Stage. Now it's Megan Stage Buckbinder. So
I
it's
don't know that I've
still,
ever heard that as a last name. That's interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
And she's got a theater background, so it was
Ah, perfect.
perfect.
Okay.
But yeah, then
So
then you get saddled with Buckbinder.
I always feel for women who go from a maiden name they never had to spell to a married name where they have to spell every time.
Yes. Yes. It is memorable though.
Yes,
People remember you for better or worse.
it is. All right. So in 2003, you enrolled, according to your LinkedIn page, you enrolled at Trinity College in Hartford.
Yes.
Okay. What was the plan?
Ha. There wasn't much of one. It was so Trinity is a great little liberal arts school in Hartford, Connecticut, and I went without really knowing what I wanted to do. I come from a long line of lawyers, so that was sort of the backup plan if I couldn't figure out a different thing that I really wanted to do. Majored in history with a focus on Asian history. That then spent a lifetime in baseball, so that didn't that
Hmm.
didn't end up benefiting me
No.
in any way. I joke actually. I what it did do was it taught me how to read critically and research and write and speak, and it did 4 years at a liberal arts school, you know, writing 35-page history papers and getting in front of the class and having to present on it. It again, I didn't realize it. I wasn't smart enough to realize what I was doing, but it was setting me up for ultimately the career that I ended up kind of falling into. But I really didn't have much of a plan. The thing that I had loved the most to that point was getting to work on the production side of our morning news show in our high school. So I went to a big high school right outside New York City, and we had like a TV studio in the high school that doubled as like the public access TV station for the community. But we could use it during the day, and so we had a little like 7 minute, if that, morning news show every day. And I got involved with that and fell in love with it. And it was all behind the camera at that point. And so I didn't really connect the dots that that would be a career path or something that I should want to go to college to keep growing my skills in. But then became a second semester senior at Trinity without, knowing what I wanted to do. I'd had a brief stint as a substitute teacher and was like, no, thank
Ooh.
you.
Yeah.
That is,
Yep.
I am not cut out. I have so much respect for everybody in education, but I was like, that
Yep.
is not my path. Um, and I knew I didn't really want to be a lawyer at that point. So I was like, what else am I going to do? And um, somebody suggested, because I loved sports and I was a strong writer, they suggested looking into minor league baseball, because every minor league team at that point, typically had like one person on these small staffs to write stories for the website and write press releases. You needed someone. And so I was like, "Oh my goodness, working in baseball would be amazing." And with that lack of planning, I went to a career fair and it worked out. I was able to talk my way into an unpaid broadcasting internship in New Haven County, with a team that hasn't existed in 18 years. They folded right after that season. And that led to a job in Bakersfield, California in hockey, which was fantastic. A great organization, the Bakersfield Condors. I was moonlighting with the baseball team in Bakersfield that was in the Ranger system at the time. That got me connected to the guys in Hickory who were the single A team, right below the team in Bakersfield, and was just able to kind of parlay that into the job in Hickory, which led to the job in Springfield. So, not having a plan ended up working out, but what I was doing was developing all these soft skills that set me up for really for any number of plans and any number of switches, like I've had a couple times in my professional life.
For folks watching the show, if they're not familiar with the triangle, part of that is Durham, and if you've ever heard of Bull Durham, the movie, it was based out of Durham and the Bulls. So how many of those bus rides in single A, high A, single A, and double A did you take like we saw in that movie?
Oh, I mean, 17 years worth. I traveled with the team for 17 years, and let me tell you, it's not much more glamorous than they made it look. Um, Before COVID, we would have one bus for every trip that wasn't an overnight trip. So in the Texas League, where I was in Springfield for the last 12 years, you're playing teams. Luckily, the North, ironically, being in Missouri and Arkansas and Oklahoma in the Texas League is actually better because you really stay for the most
Yeah,
part in the North Division. The team in Little Rock and Northwest Arkansas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and now Wichita, and then Springfield, of course. But when you go to Texas, I mean, those Texas teams are on that bus, and it's 8 hours,
yeah,
between cities in Texas. So you're in one state, but that's a heck of a state. And so we would go down to Texas, a couple times, generally about once a month. You'd go down there and hit a couple stops in Texas, and that's when we would get two buses. But for the most part, you're packed onto one bus, and you're traveling around with 25 active players, a couple guys on the injured reserve, and the coaching staffs used to be, manager, pitching coach,
mm,
hitting coach, and a trainer and a strength coach. So, you'd have five people, but through the years, you've added assistant hitting coaches or assistant pitching coaches or technology coaches now
yeah,
because it's such, analytics are all through the organization, they're all through the minors. So you have coaching staffs that are 8 or 9 people, which maybe it doesn't sound that big of a deal, but when you're riding one bus,
yeah.
like that seat real estate is precious. You got to get on that bus early to carve out a seat. So, thankfully, coming out of COVID, the minors were sort of reorganized. Major League Baseball got way more involved with the day-to-day setup of life in the minors, and they started mandating that every team provided two buses. So it got a little bit better after that, but one bus, two buses, when you're riding that,
So
15-hour trip from Springfield, Missouri to
yeah.
Corpus Christi, it hurts.
So in 18 years, how many plane trips did you take to a game?
I only took, we flew in hockey when I was with the Condors. We would have to fly a little bit
Yeah,
more. But we only flew in Springfield. I want to say there was one trip that we flew from Springfield to Corpus Christi,
yeah,
and then Corpus Christi to Amarillo, and
yes.
then we bussed back from Amarillo to Springfield. And the problem with flying until you get to a level that has big enough airports throughout, Springfield, Missouri, it's a regional airport or a national airport, but you don't have a ton of direct flights. And the other challenge is that the plane size
Yeah,
isn't big enough because they're those small,
yep,
you got two rows on one side, one row on the other, and you're busing all the equipment. So that's not even the problem. The problem is just, your traveling party's 35 people. And so to find a flight with enough seats is challenging. So we bus that one trip that we flew, we bussed to Tulsa. So we left it was like 5:30 in the morning, got on the bus. It was 2.5 hours. We were 20 minutes out from Tulsa and our trainer got a call from the airline. The entire flight was canceled.
oh,
And so
good.
now we're sitting, the gear is already on the way to Texas.
Mm,
We are almost to Tulsa without an airplane to get on. And so then it took us all day. The team had to split up, which they hate to do because now you don't know, where anybody's going. And you try to divvy up coaching staff members to at least be able to help, with each faction of players. But we had to split the team up a little bit. One group went straight to Houston. So the next day's starting pitcher and catcher and the trainer, you really find out who's critical
oh, yeah,
when
and you're
when
not,
when
are
you're
you?
divvying up.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, the radio guy,
yeah,
not critical. So they were getting the VIPs on that first
yeah.
flight. And then the majority of us were on a second flight that left out of Tulsa, went to Dallas, then connected to Houston, and then we went from Houston to Corpus
Yeah.
Christi. So it was however many flights that is in one day, and it ended up taking just as long as it would have taken had we gotten on a bus
Yep.
and just gone from Springfield to Corpus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of those things when it works out, oh, it's so smooth and you cut out so many bus hours that do beat
Yeah.
you up. It's no fun riding that bus for 14 hours in a row, but when it doesn't work out at
Yeah.
the air travel, then it just becomes a logistical nightmare. And AAA teams do it all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how they get around.
So
And
on those bus rides, give me one or two names of that we would know as major league players that you rode with before they were them.
oh, sure. So Randy Arozarena,
Oh,
who's in Seattle now, but came up through St. Louis's system and was kind of came to rose to fame with his great playoff run in Tampa. We had Randy for a little while. We had Adolis Garcia, who's the
yeah,
World Series MVP with the Rangers. He was actually on the same team in the same outfield with Randy Arozarena.
nice.
Jack Flaherty. We had 1 year in 2017. Our starting rotation was Sandy Alcantara,
Ooh,
who's in Miami,
yep.
Jack Flaherty, Dakota Hudson, who went on to pitch with St. Louis for a little while. He actually was our pitcher of the year that year. Austin Gomber, who got up with the Rockies
Mhm.
a little bit, and then a guy named Matt Pierce, who was among the best of them in Double A, and then didn't end up making it. But that was our starting rotation for half a year, and I mean, it was just it was beautiful. Every game was 2 hours and 15 minutes. Those
Yeah.
guys just cruised.
So speaking, all right,
Um,
so let's go back to buying a house. Uh, how much logoed merchandise do you still own from all these teams you played with, you called games for?
Almost all of my wardrobe has a logo on it. Especially, I mean, I've got boxes of polos,
Yep.
but I was in Springfield for so long, for 12 years, and we would always wear either our logo or St. Louis's logo to wherever we would go. And so I am, as it's gotten a little cooler, and I haven't replenished my pullover supply yet with unlogoed unlogoed apparel. I'm getting the Springfield Cardinals a whole bunch of publicity here in Wilmington, North
There you
Carolina,
go.
because that's all I have.
I know I previously worked at, Turner Sports, so I had all the NBA on TNT and all that stuff, and then Daytona National Speedway, so I'm with you, I still have things I wear, like, "You still need that?" I'm like, "That's not the right question to ask. Do I want to throw
No.
it away?" The answer is no, so, all right, real quick before we wind up here, a couple things we're gonna help folks on. First is, if you want to get into the mortgage industry, what's one or two tips you can share with folks that are thinking about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, the biggest tip I would give would be to talk to a loan officer or somebody in the mortgage industry to really understand what goes into it. It can be a little daunting when you're just trying to piece it together online. And I was fortunate to have two, people who were actively in it to kind of help me navigate the NMLS website, which is really kind of intuitive once you sort of calibrate to it a little bit. But to understand the licensing process and the hiring process and all the things that you have to do to even just get started, and then I think understand the financial side of it, and what reality is, with a commission based salary, and what you can realistically expect from a time frame to get yourself up and running and sustainable and get those applications coming in. So I think my first tip would be to reach out, to somebody. If you don't know anybody, just look someone up in your market or locally, or reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk and kind of give sort of the inside scoop of the reality of it, which can be great. I've thoroughly enjoyed, my first chapter in the business and plan on doing it for a long time. But I think before you dive in, and invest time and money into getting licensed to really understand what it's like would be probably the first tip.
All right.
And then after that, like tangibly, the first thing that you need to do is register with the NMLS. You have to do that before you can even take the test. So set up an NMLS account. That's when you get your ID number licensed to you, your license ID number issued to you, and that's kind of the first step. And then find a great company to do to do your pre-license education through.
Good. Now, the fact that you live in Wilmington means you can write loans all over the state of North Carolina, and you're licensed in South Carolina. So anybody listening, here's what you're going to do. So before they call you, what paperwork do they need to get their hands on so they can have the right conversation with you?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely the things that we'll do, we'd like to have a conversation on either end of the application. So we have some folks who just want to submit the application first, and then we dive into it, and that's when the consultation happens. Or we can talk before you even fill out the application and kind of set some expectations and learn a little bit about you, which is one of my favorite things to do, and kind of get you acclimated to what that application process is going to be like. But through that application, the biggest things are some income documents, so your last 30 days pay stubs. Also, if you have the final pay stub from the previous year, we like to collect those because, especially if you have either a variable income or you
Mm.
receive overtime or an end of year bonus or anything that is going to be beyond just standard base pay, your W-2 lumps all your comp together, whereas your pay stub is going to itemize those compensation sources, and that's what really helps us um, determine what we can use and how much of each one of those sources we can use to get you qualified. So definitely having a track to easily track down some pay stubs is important. And then really on the front end, it's, we typically will ask to see a bank statement if you have a bunch of cash reserves, just to verify that. Not that it's amazing. I mean, people tell the truth. They really do. We don't encounter a whole lot of fraud on the front end, knock on wood, but it is also, especially when it comes to income verification, there are calculations that go into that. And sometimes you think this is the number that I should put in, and sometimes that's not the number. And we get a lot of people that'll put their net income in because
Yeah.
that's the number that shows up in their bank account. We qualify you based on your gross income.
Yep.
And so that's a great example of, like, we're not trying to look for gotchas. We're a lot of the time we're just trying to verify the information and see if we can help build your file even better. So
Cool.
those are the main pieces of documentation. But aside from that, it's really just hopping on the phone and having that initial conversation and consult, and then filling out the application to be pre-approved.
All right. Well, we've been putting Andrew's phone number on the screen here. So give him a call. Again, just to ask him a couple questions, get it started, but do it the right way. Don't go looking for houses and then get disappointed that you can't afford that $800,000 house, even though your Uncle Billy said, oh, yeah, that they should do that because he dabbles in real estate. No, do not listen to that. Listen to a professional. Andrew, good luck with your core group. So, folks, if you're in Wilmington, want to meet a up and coming, be soon to be BNI chapter, young and hungry professionals, and Andrew at 40, still young, okay? Please reach out to him. So, appreciate having you on the show today.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate everybody's time.
All right, and we'll catch up later. And we'll see everybody next time on Capital to the Coast BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.